All right, well, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar about the 2021 Benefits for Success Career and Technical Education, or CTE Academy. My name is Bree Wynn, and I'm here with my colleague, Natasha Bennett. We're part of the Student-Centered Design Team at Seattle Jobs Initiative, or SJI. We'll be the CTE Academy facilitators and also your webinar host for today. So we're here to tell you more about this opportunity, which is very exciting, and we'll also go over the application process for the Academy and take your questions. Before we dive into the details, I'd like to note that this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on our website, so you'll be able to refer to it later or send the link to colleagues if you'd like. So without further ado, let's get started with a brief overview of what this Academy is going to entail. It's a one-year hands-on learning and design project to maximize student use of vital resources and benefits. And we'll explain exactly how we'll do this in a little bit. It's focused on CTE programs, and it's a capacity building opportunity. Through the Academy participants will receive research support, technical assistance, and student success and retention strategies. It's going to be virtual. And best of all, there's no fee to participate. We're really lucky to have the support of ECMC Foundation and Seattle Jobs Initiative to be able to offer this opportunity.
So we just have a short agenda. We'll start out with some housekeeping, and then we'll tell you a little bit about us, about Seattle Jobs Initiative and the Student-Centered Design Team. Then we'll walk you through some of the details of the Benefits for Success CTE Academy, so you'll get a sense of what you'd be doing in the Academy. And then we'll sort of walk you through the application process, and then we'll end with a Q&A portion where we'll take all of your questions. So just some housekeeping details. Please feel free to type in your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll be sure to get to them during that portion. All right, so let's get started. Who are we?
Yeah, just a little bit of background on us. As I mentioned, Natasha and myself, we're from SJI. SJI is a nonprofit. We're located in the Seattle area, but we work nationally. And we focus on creating opportunities for low-income and underserved adult populations to get the education and the training that they need to obtain sustainable and living wage careers. And we do this through providing technical assistance and research and evaluation services to colleges, to community-based organizations, and to government agencies nationally. And we also run our own education and training programs locally. And we've been doing this for over 20 years. And because we're TA providers and researchers and trainers and practitioners, we have a unique perspective because we gain insights into the needs and challenges of students and participants, while also working with the colleges and the providers and the systems that are helping students. And this is the combination of experience that we bring to the table. On a national level, we're known for our work with a program called SNAP ENT, which provides employment and training services to SNAP participants. We're also known for our work and research in the area of college and career navigation. So just a little bit about the Student-Centered Design Team at SJI. We work in the higher education space and the workforce training space, and we're a partner and a collaborator to colleges and training institutions. And together, we focus on solving challenges and developing ways to support and to empower students and institutional success. And we do this through research and design support, and also crucially by engaging the student voice in order to identify opportunities to become more student-centered. And speaking of student-centered, what does that mean exactly? We define it as being responsive to and focused on the needs of students. Oftentimes students can feel like the student in this image on this slide, particularly if they're a, quote unquote, non-traditional student or post-traditional student who may not be familiar with the college or higher education system, may not have anybody in their family or network that they could ask for advice or guidance. They may not know what questions to ask in order to get the answers and support that they might need. So a student-centered system or process or classroom really understands the needs of students, responds to these needs, and in the best case scenario, proactively meets these needs, without the student having to ask, without the onus being so much on the student to navigate the system. So a key way to be student-centered is to be continuously integrating and listening to and responding to student voices, and that's a key part of our work. So the last thing I'm going to mention is a bit about how we do our work. We're very collaborative. It's in our DNA. And we bring a blend of tools and techniques to the table to use as appropriate. And these tools and techniques are drawn from 3 areas: improvement science, human-centered design, and applied behavioral science. So I'm not going to go into each of these areas in detail. You can read the brief descriptions below each image there, but I wanted to mention them because we'll be using some of these tools and techniques in the Academy.
Great, thanks, Bree. So why the Academy and why now? So the 2021 Benefits for Success Academy, as you heard in the nutshell, is a 1-year hands-on learning and design project, which will be focused on providing research and technical assistance support. The work in the Academy will be focused on one particular benefit or resource and for your CTE students. So a good fit for college, so this is a great fit for colleges that want to integrate benefits access work into their long-term strategies and operations. You will need to be available for this work between April 2021 and April 2022. And ultimately, colleges that are thinking proactively about adapting this work to a new normal are especially encouraged to apply and partake. Colleges will receive a stipend of $3,500 to help cover implementation costs. The Academy will be engineered to implement low-cost interventions, and the $3,500 will certainly help towards some of those. We'll also be providing student participants with gift cards. So this project is really born out of a need that we saw to not only respond to COVID-related challenges, but we do see more and more colleges take on benefits access work for their students. So especially during this COVID time, we know that community college enrollment is down overall, and even dramatically so at some colleges. We also know that students are struggling to enroll and stay enrolled. Students are stopping out due to a possible range of causes, including but not limited to financial concerns. We've certainly seen an increase in unemployment and basic needs and security among students. We've provided some data from the Hope Center's Real College Survey. So a survey of roughly 38,000 students during weeks 4 through 8 of the pandemic. Nearly 3 in 5 students reported that they are experiencing basic needs and security. When looking at something like food insecurity specifically, we saw that 44% of respondents at 2-year institutions face food insecurity. So we are seeing an increase in basic needs and security. We also know that students who heavily relied on in-person academic support and coaching might be harder to reach in this virtual environment as these delivery systems are changing. And these are the kinds of supports that can really help students succeed in college and continue on their path. So for us, we really see that a key solution to these immediate and future needs is to really ensure that students can efficiently access and take full advantage of the benefits and supports that are available to them. So what do we mean by benefits and resources? What are we talking about here? We're really thinking about all of these supports as supplement financial aid that can be pivotal in increasing graduation rates and persistence rates and improving their opportunities to complete college and lead to good paying jobs. So here's a list of some examples that are included, but are certainly not exclusive. So things like food security resources such as SNAP or food pantries, physical or mental health resources, financial supports, tutoring, coaching, or other academic supports, technology supports. There might be state or local level public assistance benefits that apply, SNAP employment and training or other workforce funding, and other wraparound services. So as we mentioned, the work in the Academy will be focused on one particular benefit or resource, and here's just kind of a list of examples that your college could choose from. So what do we mean by connecting students to benefits and resources? We have a guiding question for this work, which is how might we make benefits access painless for students and colleges? We see the answer as maximizing the potential of these benefits and resources that are already available. But there are a range of obstacles that prevent themselves that can get in the way of making sure that students take the most advantage of what's available to them. And here are some. We know that students might be unaware of those benefits and resources. They may not know that those are around. Students may also not know that they even qualify for those benefits or resources. Sometimes these processes are really burdensome, complex, and overly bureaucratic. There might be stigma or other negative associations with means-tested benefits or other supports, which ultimately lead to a lack of alignment between program, administration, and delivery and students' actual needs. So students are really have to navigate through a maze of pathways, and this disconnect can result in resources being underutilized or under-accessed.
All right, so a key question: what are Academy participants actually going to be doing? What is it actually going to look like? So first, Academy participants are going to choose one benefit or resource available to CTE students at the college to focus on. And you'll want to focus on a benefit or resource that's being under-accessed, as Natasha mentioned, or underutilized, or that you know needs improvement or enhancement in some way to be able to provide maximum benefits to students. And we've made this choice to focus on one benefit or resource deliberately. And this is because the Academy is intentionally designed to be a one-year project. And so our area of focus and everything that we do is engineered to fall within this timeline. And we did this because we know that everyone is coping with the changes brought about by COVID. We all have demands on our time and our mental bandwidth. But as Natasha mentioned, it's still really important, especially now, to take a look at processes and practices and ensure that resources are getting to the students who need them most. So we want to make the Academy doable. And we want it to align with your current work. We want it to build on work that you've already done at the college. And we've kept this top of mind as we've put together the Academy content. So let's talk about the content. There are 5 phases that we'll be advancing through in the Academy. Actually 4 phases, and then the pre-phase, which is the welcome phase. And during that welcome phase, that's when we're going to be doing some pre-work, project definition, and goal setting, and that's going to take place via phone call in March. And then the first phase is learning and assessing and understanding the student experience. And so here we'll map the current state of how students are using or not using the benefit or resource that you've chosen to focus on, and also get insights and suggestions directly from students. And so this is the integration of the student voice. And we'll do this work to be able to identify gaps between intentions, like how things are supposed to work or how we'd like them to work and what's actually happening. Also an opportunity to identify obstacles that students might be encountering, both the obstacles that we might already know about, the visible obstacles, but also hidden obstacles that we might not know about. And then we'll move into the next phase, which is collaborative intervention design. And here we'll prioritize the obstacles that we want to remove and the areas of opportunity that we want to realize. And we'll look at those obstacles and areas of opportunity that will have the highest impact on helping students connect with and utilize the benefit or resource that you've chosen to focus on. Then we'll design low cost and what we're calling quote unquote lo-fi interventions and solutions to implement and test. And so when we say lo-fi, we mean interventions that we can design and implement in a few months. So as I mentioned, these aren't going to be long-term, system-wide interventions that might take 2 years or more to implement, because this Academy is designed to be within that 1-year time frame. And so we're going to test and we're going to measure the impact of these interventions. But again, we want them to be fairly lightweight. And we'll be using rapid improvement testing techniques that draw on the scientific method to do the testing. But we want to make sure that these testing series of tests are going to be fairly compact and not as time and resource intensive as other testing methodologies. So that's phase 4. And then we'll move on to, so that's phase 3 rather, and then we'll move on to the next phase, phase 4, which is debrief and agenda setting for the future. So in this phase, you'll have your results from testing, you'll be able to see what happened, and you'll be able to identify those interventions and those impacts that you'd like to keep, that you'd like to operationalize and scale. It will also give you the opportunity to look to and plan for the future. Because through this process, you will likely have identified bigger system level changes that you want to make and areas that you'd like to probe into or develop further beyond the Academy. So what are the benefits of participating in the Academy? Well, we think most importantly and most immediately, you'll gain resilient practices to support student success and be able to respond in real time to COVID-related challenges, to the challenges that students are facing, specifically because of the changes brought about by COVID. So we want to promote resiliency. You'll also get the results from your intervention testing. In addition to this, you'll leave with new and enhanced strategies to support student retention and completion, as well as a deeper understanding of the student experience. That's where the integration of the student voice comes in. And even though all of us hear from students, probably on a regular basis, sometimes it can be hard with so many daily responsibilities to really take the time to intentionally sit down and listen to and figure out how to integrate their voices and their suggestions into our work. So this Academy offers an opportunity to do that. And then you'll also get applied research insights, tools, and techniques to apply in the future.
Okay, so now that you've gotten a little sense of what the Academy is about, I'm going to walk you through the application process. So this is a fairly straightforward process that recognizes that everyone is busy and that there are so many demands on your time. So this isn't meant to be a heavily burdensome process. So here's kind of the high level understanding of the process. The next step in the process, now that you're all on this webinar and getting more information, would be to send an email of interest. This is optional, but really we want to hear from you. So this is a simple email telling us that you're applying, and it also provides you with an opportunity to ask questions and connect with us. The next step would be to work with your college colleagues to identify a benefit or resource that your college would like to focus on for this work. As we mentioned, we'll only be tackling one. The next step is to then review and prepare the application questions, of which there are 8. And I will give you a high level understanding of what those application questions look like. And part of that is you'll be asked to start building a project team. We're asking that you identify 2 members of your project team for this application. Then you'll submit the application by the deadline of December 18th. We will contact and schedule interviews with shortlisted institutions that will take place in January. These will be roughly 1-hour interviews. And then we will make decisions and communicate those decisions by February 15th in time to begin our pre-work in March and launch in April. Okay, so what are the application questions? This is really meant to be an overview, and you can download our application form and application instructions from our website. But essentially, we're really asking about, we want to gauge your interest for your work, interest for this work at your college, and get some general information about your college, your students, and your CTE programs. The application will ask you more about the benefit, resource, or support that your college has chosen to focus on. So we're interested in context. We want to know a little bit more about that benefit or resource in your area. We're also going to be asking you to assess the need for students and why you think it's a good fit for this academy. We're also going to ask you to note why students may not be using the benefit or resource as much as they could, or why you think it might need to be adapted or improved in some way. So really identify an opportunity here. So as I mentioned, the application will also ask you to identify 2 members of your project team. Those members include the project lead, and the project lead is responsible for coordinating and spearheading the effort on your campus. That person will also serve as the primary liaison between your college project team and SJI. We're also asking that you identify a member of your college's leadership team. This person really serves as a project sponsor who can really help integrate the findings and learnings into college priorities and initiatives. This person should also have insight into the resource constraints and opportunities available at your campus so that we make sure that this work is sustainable long-term. We will add other members to your project team later to round it out. And here are just some suggestions if you want to get started thinking about it. So this would be a member closely associated with your CTE programs, and a member who oversees the benefit or resource that you've chosen, or a staff member who works closely with students in some related area. So that's just kind of an overview of what the application questions will be asking you. So here's just, you can see where you can download the application instructions and the application itself on our website. So you can see that if you click those 2 buttons. So why should you apply? Ultimately, what is this leading to? So from our work, we know that this work is really valuable for students, and we've highlighted a couple of student quotes here that really get to that. So the first one is from a low-income student who feels vulnerable and doesn't want to feel ashamed or scared to seek out the resources and support that they need. So we know that streamlining this process can reduce that vulnerability and reduce that stigma. The second quote reflects a student who didn't know a resource exists and how it changed their life. I can't believe this is available. I'm getting so much benefit and it changed my life. But more importantly, this person notes that it's by chance that they found it. So we certainly want this work to help improve student well-being so that they don't necessarily stumble upon it by chance, but it's a streamlined process. So ultimately, the impact of this work is to benefit student well-being so that they can remain focused on their academic work and focus on their career goals. This work will also bolster your student retention strategies and your completion strategies so that students are more likely to stick around and finish. And ultimately, this work will embed benefits access work into existing practices that you're already doing. This is a way to efficiently use college resources while getting students the help and support that they might need.
Great, thanks, Natasha. All right. So now it's time for Q&A. We're really excited to discuss this opportunity further with you, to answer questions. So please submit any questions you have in the Q&A box and we will answer them live. So just take a second to do that. And we'll just start answering questions as they come in. So the first question is, how will students be involved in the work? Actually, there's two questions. And the second question is, what kinds of interventions do you think will come out of this? Great. So Natasha, did you want to do the first question and I'll add to it and then we can do the second one?
Sure. So as Bree mentioned, we really, it's integral to our work to integrate the student voice. And so we integrate students at a couple of different points. The first is in the research and assessment phase, right? As we mentioned, sometimes students just don't have the awareness or they're encountering obstacles that may not be clear. And so we integrate student voice in the research and assessment phase through things like focus groups and interviews and other research methods that are going to be appropriate for your context. And we also involve them in the design phase, right? We want solutions to be able to speak to student problems. And so integrating student voice into those solutions ensures that those interventions are sustainable and actually responding to the needs of students. So we do that through inviting them to collaborative work sessions so that they can be involved in that process.
So for the second question, what kinds of interventions do you think will come out of this? That is a great question. So as I mentioned earlier, we're looking for interventions that will make a difference for students, in that students will be able to access a benefit and resources, or a resource more easily and utilize it to the fullest extent possible. So those types of interventions could be enrollment process improvements, outreach improvements. Sometimes we talk to students and they talk about, as you saw in the quote, how difficult it was for them to find out about a resource, or that they stumbled upon it and it was just by luck or pure chance they felt that they were able to find out about it. So we want to eliminate that chance and make it more intentional, that students get connected to the information and the opportunities that they need to take advantage of these resources. So it could be outreach improvements. It could be stigma reducing practices. If students are reluctant or ashamed or feel shame to take advantage of a resource, what could we do to reduce that, to overcome that obstacle? It could also be reminders or strategies to foster higher student engagement with resources and supports. So what that could look like is, the process changes. It could look like talking points and information and nudges and reminders to either advisors or faculty or staff and to students. It could be ways to frame the resources so that stigma and jargon is reduced. It could be just simple, pure process improvement, sludge audits and reduction. So sludge is when there's a lot of bureaucratic rules or a lot of steps in a process that are unnecessary that could be removed so the process is easier for students. We know that we work with a lot of federal and state and kind of local government benefits and resources. We know that there are some regulations involved. So we're very cognizant of that. But often there are just older bureaucratic rules and regulations that don't need to be there, that have been in place for a long time, that need to be revisited. And this process will help do that. And then identify those extra steps that can be removed. So those are just some examples of the types of interventions and solutions that we could focus on.
So we have a couple of questions from the chat. The first is approximately how many colleges do you plan to work with? We're aiming for a cohort of about 3 colleges at this point. Another question from the chat, examples of previous projects.
Yeah, so we actually do have some examples that you can read about on our website, but I'll briefly describe here. One example has to do with streamlining access to certain federal benefits. And in that example, there's a very large urban college that we worked with and continue to work with. That has a number of different touch points into the college. It's so large that students can connect to the college in a variety of ways. That also means that they interact with different people at the college, or sometimes they don't interact with a person at all if they're doing everything online. And so in this particular work, we identified that there wasn't a systematic way to connect students and give them information about this really important federal benefit. And so intervention ideas is involving working on identifying those obstacles. One of them is, lack of a systematic process, but other obstacles are lack of students getting information in a proactive way. The information could be embedded into other communication channels that students already have to go through. For example, federal or financial aid communications, communications around enrollment and intake. That opportunity could be highlighted in those communications. Also, stigma is a big issue in this particular case. And so framing and providing staff and faculty with talking points about how to discuss this opportunity with students to reduce the stigma is another area of work that we're working on. So that's just one example that I would say is the most relevant. We also work in a number of different areas. For example, increasing attendance or persistence. We're also looking and working very closely with one of our partners on part-time students, and how can we better support part-time students, because we know that part-time students take longer to persist and complete. It's also harder for them to persist and complete because life gets in the way. So those are just some examples of other types of work that we're currently doing.
Thanks, Bree. So we have another question about the role of the project lead. This is a great question. Essentially, the project lead is the person who really ensures that the work gets done on your college campus. And so this person will be primarily responsible for, setting meetings or coordinating action that might need to be taken, that might involve recruiting students for focus groups or for collaborative design sessions. So that person is really kind of a main coordinator of that work.
So we have another question about what college department would be best to participate: financial aid, student services, other. So Natasha, why don't you take that one, because you were talking about the project team.
Yeah, sure. So this kind of really depends on which benefit or resource that you've chosen. This is really up to colleges to kind of decide who which department they think is more involved in that benefit or resource. The ones listed in the question, financial aid can certainly be relevant, especially if you're thinking about embedding benefits access work into financial aid processes that already exist. That would certainly be useful. Student services, of course, would be a relevant college department. And others, might be counseling. If you're focused on mental or physical health, you might think about counseling or something along those lines. So it's really dependent on the context. And the project lead can really come from either one of those departments. It might be, it could come from CTE programs, or could be a dean of workforce or something like that. So it's really up to the college to define who they think the best person is to carry on that work given the resource or benefit that they've chosen to focus on.
So another question is around, is there any follow-up after the year of pilot program? That is a great question. So we don't have any formal follow-up in place, but what we find, because we have run training academies before, is that oftentimes participants want to follow up and it happens organically. We like to keep in touch with everybody who's in a training academy or who works with us on a project. And it just seems to happen that by dint of working together, we can forge a working relationship, which lends itself to an opportunity to keep in touch. When we've done training academies, we've had participants that responded in a group kind of email listserv from time to time to keep everybody updated. So we certainly want to keep in touch. We certainly want to hear about your agenda setting for the future and what you've been able to do with the interventions. We'd love to be able to collaborate and offer thought partnership around that. But we don't have anything formal in place. That doesn't mean that we won't have anything formal in place. We'll let the academy dictate that, because if it becomes clear that academy participants really want to have that opportunity, I think we can put our heads together and come up with something that works for all of us.
So we have another question from the chat. Could you elaborate on the cohort nature of the program, collaborating with other participants? That's a great question. One of the things that we really like about this format is participating colleges will get a chance to work with other colleges who are working on, perhaps a different benefit or resource, but are all aimed at tackling the same kind of problem. And so there definitely will be opportunities and collaborative working sessions to connect with the other colleges, the other college project teams. So you'll be able to share findings and share learnings and communicate with each other. And so we are excited about the opportunity for colleges to kind of embark on this together, and that's certainly built into our program. Bree, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I think you covered it really well. One thing to mention, I think we had this noted on one of the slides that had the phases displayed, but I didn't talk about it. It's also on our website, but there are going to be 5 training webinars that introduce the techniques and tools that we're going to use, up to 2 working sessions, and then we'll provide monthly TA calls, as we'll put a schedule together, and we can be flexible with that schedule. So it's during the training webinars and working sessions, primarily, that Academy participants will have a chance to collaborate and compare notes, and we'll certainly try to engineer and create and facilitate as many of those opportunities as possible. Did we answer all the questions?
I think so. Any other questions that people want to ask? Well, we're always happy to answer any of your questions. Just feel free to email us. We will put our email address in the chat, and please do take a look at our website and download the application instructions and application itself if you're interested. And we're really looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, we really are. And I just put our email address in the chat. I'm typing in our website into the chat as well. And I'm also putting in the Academy page, which is on our website. And there's a great FAQ on the Academy page. We will be updating it as we get questions. We got some great ones today, so we'll be adding them to the list. And please, as you go through the process of putting together an application, feel free to drop us a line. We love to chat. We love to share ideas and collaborate. We're always available. So let us know and we'll get right back to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.